come back and watch it later. And we will get started. So here's the deal. The very first thing is creating your classroom. And I know a lot of you have created your classroom already. And one of the big questions that I get all the time is, well, I don't have my students yet, so I can't really create my classroom. The nice thing about Google Classroom is you can create your classroom. You can put in as many assignments as you want. You can save them as draft. And then once you put students in, you can publish, as needed. And so you can actually plan ahead. Last week, we did the code.org computer science discoveries and principles training online. And the discoveries peeps used Google Classroom, and they had everything in. They had the whole week already in, and they'd scheduled all those posts to come out when they wanted them. And so it was pretty fun to watch. I was in as a teacher, and I got to see all the notifications as they would post those assignments. And so those are the kind of things that are really nice. So you do not need to have your students or your roster to be able to create classwork. So let's get started. So you guys, so I'm going to pretend I'm a student, so we can kind of help you guys all get in the classroom. So I'm going to make myself a guest window here, and I'm going to go to classroom.google.com, just like I asked you to do. And then it says, go to Classroom. And so I'm going to do that. And then it's going to ask me to log in. I'm going to log in without not using my K-12. Well, actually, I'm going to log in using my K-12 first. So I'm going to use my K-12 because I want to make sure that you guys see what happens when you log in with your K-12. So I'm logging in with my K-12. And K-12 has that single sign-on. And so when you went to classroom.google.com and typed in your K-12 email address and it did not pop you over here to this single sign-on, you have some wonkiness going on with your email address. Not really wonkiness. It's just it's been set up as a personal email address. And so we'll need to talk with your tech coordinator to figure that out. Let's see. So then I'll type in my password and boom, now I'm in Google Classroom. But this is me as a teacher. And so I'm going to leave Google Classroom and come back again. So we're going to go to guest one more time. And so one of the nice things you may not know about Chrome is you have a guest window option. So if you go to the upper right hand corner and click on your initials, you can get the guest. And then that will put you in a window where you're not logged into anything. And so if you need to switch accounts or do something, it really makes life a lot easier. So I'm going to log in as another one of my Google Apps accounts so that I can join our class. So I've gone into Classroom. I now want to join the class. And so in the chat, can somebody, because 25 of you have joined my classroom, you know how to do this. How do I join the classroom? What do I click on? In the chat, fast, type it. Yes! Awesome. I love this. The elementary peeps are responding. That's cool. Okay, so yes, I clicked the plus and I'm going to join a class. If you are classified as a student, you will not see this create class option. You'll only see join class. So just, so if you're worried about your kids being able to create classes or anything, they can't. They only see join. All right. Now it takes it a couple seconds and boom, I am in too. So the exciting thing for me is I'm going to be a student in our class today, and I'm also going to be a teacher in our class today, so that I'll be able to ping pong back and forth and show you both sides of the screen. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our class, and then I'm actually going to, so in our class, as a student, so I'm going to go back to the student side, you guys have already figured out the stream. I'm seeing comments here on the class stream. These are our class comments, and so when I post things to the stream as a teacher, these are things that I can ask the class questions, I can make announcements, and the nice thing with this is you have, it's a really great way to um, create that class community. You may find that students start to ask each other questions here. And if you have issues with them posting and you find that they're not posting appropriately, you can mute individual students and or you can change the permissions of who can post on the stream. So when you guys taught this spring, what did you guys use the stream for those of you that used Google Classroom? You can unmute and chat me, or you can chat it in the chat.
I used it to announce assignments. I used it to suggest other places and information.
Okay. Announcements, nice. Upcoming Zoom meetings and announcements. Daily announcements for the lesson, excellent. Good. And you'll notice like I used ours today as a kind of to get you thinking about what you are doing this summer, or what are you doing this summer? Google Classroom is what you're doing this summer. So you know what you're excited about using Google Classrooms for. Okay, so then our classwork, the next button over, is where all of our assignments are. When I look at this from the student side, I only see topics that have published material. I also will be able to see here the all of the assignments that are posted for me. And then finally, the people side, I can see who my teacher is and I can see my students. And so for like special ed teachers run into a lot of challenges here because of privacy. One of the things that you can do with this is two things. You can join your student's main classroom teacher as a co-teacher, because you can add co-teachers to the class. Or if you have, you know, depending on your student, you may want to just create an individual Google Classroom for a specific student. And I've seen teachers do both of those really successfully. So you have some options there. All right, so this is the student side. So you guys should all be in as a student. And I'm gonna flip back over to making a classroom. So this is me as a teacher again. And you'll see with me as a teacher, I have one more tab. I have this grades tab in the upper right. So I have the stream, classwork, people, and grades. So I'm going to actually create a Google Classroom from scratch, just so that you guys, so we can go through the whole process. So I'm going to go back to my home. You're going to see all of the classes that I have that I'm either a teacher or a student in, and so they all show up. What's nice, and this is brand new, I shouldn't say brand new, but it's new, like a year or so old, you can rearrange your class tiles, and so you don't have to, it's not in the order that you create them. So you can drag and drop your class tiles. Your students will only see the classes that they are enrolled in. So while you may be teaching a whole bunch of classes, your students will only see the classes that they're enrolled in. Okay, so I'm going to go to the plus and make a new class. So the class name is required. I really encourage you to be as specific as possible to help your learners know where they're going. And so in the smaller schools, it's not as big of a deal. But in larger schools, if you have multiple sections of science, you'll want to make sure that the students know they're in, first period science. So I'm going to call this my demo class, and I'm going to call it Mobridge. I'm going to put this section as Mobridge Pollock. I could go as far as to add in the subject in the room. I'm not going to do that. So once I create the class, it'll pop up and I'm going to have a blank classroom. And it comes up with our theme. I can select a theme if I want. So I can go in and select any of the themes that they've given me, or I can upload a photo. And so I can either upload a photo from my computer, and when I do that, it will, so when I pop in and grab the header, so this is something that I'd made for you guys yesterday, pops in and it comes in a little small, and I can leave it like that, or I can drag and drop and capture more of the image. So it just depends on what I want to do. I did give you guys in the bonus materials, I did give you this template that you can go back and play with if you want. And so that's how easy it is to customize your header, but you don't have to. You can just use their themes. Oh, I've got a great question in the chat, and we'll talk about that in about 2 seconds, about how to deal with classes from previous years. So we'll definitely look at that. So we're in our class now, and so you've set up your class. You've got a class. It's got a class code. We can see we have no upcoming work. Gives us information that we can communicate with our learners, and so kind of nice. I mean, you've hit the ground running. So the next thing over is our classwork. So this is where we want to create assignments. And so one of the things that I've found to be very useful is being able to reuse assignments. And so if I want to reuse a post, I can go back and pull from any of the classes that I have used, that I have previously, and pull them in. And so for example, if I have a class that I used last year, I can go back and I can pull in different assignments. You can copy last year's class, but it's going to pull in all the assignments, and it gets a little messy. I did that a couple weeks ago for another training, and it was a lot. And so I think an easier way to manage is to reuse assignments rather than copying classes, unless you're teaching the same class, like you're teaching 3 sections of Algebra 1, you may want to build one of your Algebra 1 classes for this year and then copy those, just because. And you can reuse posts, you guys. I've reused posts. Here we go. All right, so here's my posts. I can reuse posts. So like I can pull posts from your current classroom. And so my very first assignment is I want to create a Google Classroom. Deb, that's a really good question about your assignments from Schoology, and I will get back to you on that one. So I'm going to reuse this post. I did not create copies of the assignments because basically what I want to do is I will come in and I will edit these, my attachments that I have. So here I have the whole post. Now I can come in and edit it, and it's super easy to reuse. You can see that it gives me the options to assign to multiple classes when I want to assign it. I also, if I had students in this class, I could select which students I wanted to send it to. Points are set up. You can use posts from archived classes, yes. And so even if you archive your classes, you can reuse those posts. I can set up my due date here. And I can also do the time. And so if I want to say it's due the 30th, I can also throw in a time there if I want to throw in the time. And then I can also bring in a rubric. If I want to create one from scratch, I can reuse it, or I can import it from Sheets. And so I have options there too. So the other thing that I didn't talk about was the topic. Topics is how you organize your content. If we look at your class for today, you're going to see that I have 3 topics going on here. I have class materials, day 1, and then day 1 bonus materials. So when you're looking at the bonus materials, or when you're looking at the topics, they actually come over when I'm making a demo class, when I reuse a post. So I can say I don't want to use this, and so now there's no topic, or I can create a topic if I wanted to make a different one. And call it day 1. So, okay, so now I'm going to say go ahead and assign this. And so now I have an assignment in my Google Classroom, my demo class. The other kinds of assignments, and we're going to, we'll be exploring these kind of as we go. I can create an assignment from scratch. As you can see, you really don't need a lot of information here. I mean, all I really need is a title. You'll notice that the assignments that I've made all have numbers in front of them. Alice Keeler recommends strongly numbering your assignments and not reusing those numbers. And so when you start the school year out, you start with 001 and you go all the way through the end of the school year and just keep on increasing numbers. And then that way, if you are searching in your Google Drive, it's easier to search because you're only going to have 1001 for this year. It's totally up to you. I mean, I try just because I want to make sure that I'm modeling really good practice. The other thing you're going to notice when you look at assignments, I really try to be very consistent in giving instructions for what you're going to do. And then I also you can give lots of resources within an assignment. And so it doesn't just have to be one attachment necessarily. And so as I'm making the resources or adding the resources, I'm going to be very, I'm going to list those out that say that, and I may want to say, read this article might actually be something that is a step. Because you guys are adults, I'm giving them as stuff to support your work because I'm not going to, I don't want to tell you what to do exactly. So anyways, so I try to use a lot of consistency. And so once I came up with a format that I kind of like, I've been replicating that. So last spring when you were doing this, did you use a lot of consistency with your assignments? And you can chat me or you can unmute. You tried. It's hard. Pam, totally. I try too, and that's really where I'm at. And so I actually reuse within the same class. And so like I created this assignment and then I reused my assignment number 1, named it number 2, and then so I could follow the format because it is hard to have that consistency. But I do think that is really important, especially as we're working with our learners to have how are you communicating. But it's also really important to know that you can add more than one thing or one resource to a Google assignment. So I'm going to pop back over. So here's my title, and so because I would probably go 001, and this is a demo assignment, um, you'll notice here that the instructions are optional, and so when I'm doing that, like I just said, I try to be really consistent. Some teachers will just have all their instructions and everything in the Google Docs or the attachments that they give, and so you can just say, hey, here's the instructions here. When I say add, so if you teach multiple sections, are the numbers tied to a section or to our Google Drive? So if you teach multiple sections in of a class, you will end up with the numbers. So each class would have its 001 assignment, for example. And then if you duplicated those classes, each one of those classes would have its own 001. And so it's useful when you're searching in your folder, and we will look at those folders here in a little bit so that you can kind of see how that looks. Google Drive. So when we want to add resources, you can add from Google Drive. And so you're going to notice when you do Google Drive, you're going to, it comes up as recent. So you can go in and you can find any of your recent files. You can upload, and so that would be if I uploaded something from my computer. And so this is if you have Word docs, etc., that you want to upload. You have My Drive, and so that's just your Google Drive. You'll see I have some folders, and then I also have just loose chaos. I really recommend trying to keep things in folders. This drive is not my best example of organization. And then also starred, and so if you have files that you have starred or put a notification on that you want them to be easy to find, you can look for them by starred. And so I'm going to go back to my recents. I'm just going to add. So I'm going to add a Google Sheets that I've already created. So now when I add a Google Sheets, you'll see that it comes up by default here that students can view the file. You have three options here, and this is one of your questions. How do you force copies of files for each student? So you can do three things. They view it, they can only look at it. And so this could be an informational piece. It could be your instructions. Students can edit the file. That is where everybody edits the same document. We do this a couple of different times in this class, and so you'll get to experience how everybody editing the same document works. Make a copy for each student. That forces a copy for each student in your class. And so when we do that, it's actually, you don't have, it's like going to the copy machine and making copies. One of the things, once you've made the copy for each student, if you go back and edit your sheet or edit your document, those changes do not get pushed out. And so, but you can always go in and delete if you need to, and attach another file. So you have those options. But so so if you want students to only edit their own work, make a copy for each student. If you say students can edit the file, that means everybody's editing the same file. And if they can view it, they can only view it. Keeping on adding, link. I can add a link to anything in my, anything on the internet, basically. And so if I have a link, I can add it in, and here you go. And so here's a link to some information. I can also add a file. And so this is where, and here is, and I think this is kind of confusing because I said I wanted to add a file. Well, it drops me back over to my Google Drive. But if I click on upload, this is where I can upload a file or a PDF or something from my computer. And then finally, I can do a YouTube. And so I can either search, and so if I wanted to find something about Google Classroom, I can search. However, I tend to come in with a with a URL, paste it in. I'm going to go back, just grab one here so you can see what it looks like. But I generally come with the URL I want to use. So here we have added all of the different things that we can add to our assignment. We can also create, and so in your assignments for this class, I've asked you to create things. And so this would be in the instructions where I could say, you know, I can create my document and it'll come up with an untitled document and it'll open it, that I can now make my instructions for class. And I can edit it and do whatever I want with it. And now when I close it and go back, it will refresh. And so now I've added a Google Doc that I've totally created. And so you can see that I can create docs, slides, sheets, drawings, or forms right in an assignment. So if I don't have something created, I can make it, I can create it right within the assignment. And so, yes, this is exactly where I added the supplementary materials. Yes, is in this assignment. And so if we go back and look at the assignments that I've made for you guys, you'll see that I've added in a number of resources to help you learn about Google Classroom. And then I've added the document that I want you to edit. If I create it, it will save to Drive. Yep, it saves automatically to Drive. And so once I create something, it does save it automatically to Drive. And is this where I created the slides for each of us? I could have. I didn't. I mean, this was the slides file was something that I had separate in my Google Drive, and then I decided I wanted to use that with you guys, and so I already had it in my drive. But I can go back and I can edit it if I want. And so like if we go in and look at this file and I can say, yeah, you know, this isn't exactly what I want, I can come back and I can edit it and I can add in the different slides. Okay, so let's look at my options over here to the right. So I can tell again where I want to post it, the number of points, due date, topic. And so here it is, you know, I can create a new topic if I want, or I can drop it under day one. I'm not going to I'm not going to drop it under any topic, so you can see what happens and see how easy it is to fix. And I'm going to say, okay. But the next thing I want to do is I want to show you how we can schedule it. So I can schedule this post if I want to. And when I schedule it, it's just going to say, I can give it a date when I want it to pop out, and I can also do a time. One of the drawbacks is I can't close it on a time. So I can't say I'm only going to make this assignment available from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. I can post it, but I can't take it back down on a schedule. So just so you know that, some of you, if you used other LMSs, they allow you to, you know, publish and unpublish. You don't have an unpublish option in Google Classroom. So I'm going to go ahead and assign this because I want to show you what happens without a topic and how easy it is to fix. All right. So I didn't do a topic with this, and it just floats up here to the top in the land of no topic. So what I can do is I can do a couple of different things. Like say I want to make this as day 2, so I can create a topic. I can add it. So it'll add my topic, and then now I can I can just drag and drop my demo assignment wherever I want. I can also drag and drop my topics around. I can drag and drop my assignments around. So I have a lot of options for moving resources and not having to go back in and edit if I forgot. So that's really nice. I don't have to think about that. Okay, so you guys, so let's see, a couple more things. A quiz. And so there were a number of questions about quizzes and how to have a locked browser and that type of thing. So you can either, when you do a quiz, we can add a blank quiz, or you can come in and you can add a quiz that you've already made from your Google Drive. So I'm going to pop up here our blank quiz. I'm going to give it a quick question. I'm going to give it my options. And then I'm going to go to my answer key and I'm going to choose my correct answer. I'm going to give it the number of points that it gets. I'm going to give answer feedback if I want. I'm going to, I can also attach a file here if I want to attach, like go back and review. I can also do a video if I want. I'm going to save this. And great question about, can I create a question bank for quizzes so I don't have to create quizzes from scratch? Yes-ish. I mean, so they don't call it a question bank, but they call it, it's this, so when I want to add another question, I can, over on the right here, I see the little toolbar. The first one is the plus, add a question. The next one is the rectangle with the arrow. That's import a question. And so now it's going to pop me out to all of my quizzes that I've made. And now I can go out and select the quiz, and then it's going to ask me what I want to import. And so I do this a lot, actually. I'll import from numerous quizzes so that I don't have to recreate the wheel. And so now here we have, whoops, what I did there. Here we have, I've just inserted a whole bunch of questions, and I can, yeah, I could. And so if I already had a quiz created, I could just attach that. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, this is exactly what I want. And so I'm going to close it. And so now, if I wanted to use a quiz that I created previously, I can just go back to my Google Drive. I can bring it in that way and find it in my Google Drive. Or what's one other way I could reuse a quiz from a previous year? You guys can unmute and talk to me. Reuse a post. Yes. Thank you, Lindsay. So yeah, you can reuse a post. And so if you have a quiz from last year, you can just go ahead and reuse that in your current year. A couple things about quizzes. First of all, you guys asked about the locked browser. On Chromebooks, you can use the locked mode on Chromebooks. And so that's only on Chromebooks though. And then you can import grades for the assignments. And so you see that it says it automatically limits the form to 1 response per user. It collects email addresses and restricts responses to users in your domain. And so that means that like if you have somebody who has joined your classroom with a personal Gmail address, a Gmail account, they will not be able to, you won't be able to see that grade imported. So the other thing to be aware of is if I want the grade to import, I can only have one assignment on this one thing on this assignment. And so like if I have a quiz and then I also want to attach a, and then say create a document and write your reflections, that will make it so that the grade won't import. And so you'll just want to say the quiz is the only thing that is on this assignment. Great question about can you import a quiz or a test from another format? So you can use other tools like quizzes and Kahoots and all those types of things in Google Classroom. So you can use those resources in their main form, like on the quizzes site, but you can't like bring you can't make a Google quiz from a quizzes form, if that makes sense. So yes and no, you can use those resources, but you can't actually bring them in. All right. Okay, so I'll just see, I need a title for it. It won't let me do anything unless I have a title. Then I'm going to say assign, and here we go. Okay, and I didn't drop it anywhere, and so it doesn't fall under a topic. And that is probably my biggest challenge, is remembering to give my assignments a topic. But topics really do keep you so much more organized. All right, back to assignments. Question. I love the question because this is a great way to no, adding resources like a YouTube video will not mess up grade importing, but if you have multiple things for the students to submit, that will mess up grade importing. And if you have a test generator from your textbook company, you can add in links. You can link in anything. And so what I would do is look at your textbook company and see if it has a share to Google Classroom. That would be my first thing when you're sharing, to see, because that would be the easiest. If you can share to Google Classroom, it means that it works with Google Classroom. Otherwise, you can add in the link, and the students would be able to get to it. Questions. So questions, you can have either a short answer question or you can have a multiple choice question. One of the things that I love is this can be a great way for discussion. And so I can go ahead and I can ask a question. How can you use Google Classroom? I could add resources if I wanted to. And then you're going to notice over on the right that I have options where students can reply to each other. So I could say, and then, comment on 3 other students. So now, as a student, you can't see what anybody else has said until you submit your answer to the question. And then once you submit your answer, you'll be able to see. And then you can also, you can turn on and off that students can reply to each other. And so really great way to bring in discussion and have that conversation in the classroom through chat. So I'm going to drop it under my topic, say they can reply, and I'm going to say ask. Awesome. So there's my question, and you'll see that a question comes up with a different icon too, and so the students know that that'll be different. If you want to just have material, so I have instructions, I have my class syllabus, I have the how to use the science equipment safely, all of those kinds of things. Those are just material. Those are things that students will refer back to throughout the year. So I can add in my syllabus, which I don't really have, but we'll just grab something. So I can add in my syllabus. I can now, when I post it, you're going to see it really falls under, it can just be under a topic. And so I could have it be the materials for day one if I wanted, or I could call it, just, reference, and have it be something that's there for the year. You'll notice when I do a material post, I don't have to determine the sharing settings at all because there is no sharing with this. There's no comments. It's just a materials post. And so once I post it, it comes up and it's there for the students. And so a lot of teachers will keep their materials at the top of the class, just because that way it's stuff that's always there. So it might be where you post your logins for different sites, just any of those kinds of things where you want students to have access to these resources immediately, and they'll keep them there. And then finally that reuse post, which is like magic. And so I can go back and I can select any of my classes. You'll notice here that I have some archived classes that I can pop into. And so I can go in and check those out so I don't have to unarchive them. So basically all of the classes that I've ever used, I can go in and I can pull posts out of. And I can actually pull posts out of the class I'm currently in too. And so you see here, like, gosh, I really like how I set up that 001. I can go in and reuse that post and edit it and make it 002. All right, so that's my demo class. That's a real fast run through of all of the different classwork options. We're going to quick pop over to people. So I can add in teachers. And so teachers can do everything that you can do except delete the class. And so have any of you been co-teachers in somebody else's Google Classroom? Go ahead and chat it or unmute. Yay! Oh, I love this. That's so cool. So you've been co-teachers. Does anybody want to talk about how that worked? You can unmute. Yeah, I will show you guys the rubric.
In upper elementary, we use co-teaching a lot, like you said, with like the SPED teacher or the speech teacher. They were part of my classroom, and then they were able to assign an assignment just specifically to that one student. That worked out really good for us.
Good. I am so glad. And that really is, the nice thing there is the specials teacher can see exactly what you're doing in the classroom too. And I mean, it really, and also can modify the assignment if they need to. And so they can take the standard assignment and modify it. And so I just think that's such a nice way to be a part of the classroom. So that's awesome. So you can invite teachers and then students. So here is one of the challenges that I struggle with Google Classroom. And so you can invite by name or email. I tend to use the join code. So when you guys used Google Classroom last year, did you use the join code or did you do the invite code? And so, so Nicole in third grade, did invite by name work for them?
I think it worked okay. It was just easier for me to set up, especially in the beginning. We had never used Google Classroom with the kids before, or with any of us.
It was all new. I hear you. So I've found the code works better for me for the kind of stuff I do. I like the concept of being able to invite students, but even in my own domain, the student invites will often go to spam, and so like nobody gets it. And so I really um, I like using the class code personally, and it's an easy. It gives the students that ownership, you know. I mean, it's like they're joining the class, and it's just kind of what they can do to take advantage of that. All right, so that's your people. And then finally grades. Grades is going to be boring because we have no people. And I'm going to actually wait and talk about grades when you guys have turned in some assignments, because it's just a little easier for you to see stuff. Two more things I want to look at real quick with our Google Classroom. And so was asked about the rubric, and I will come back around to the rubric, so we will talk about that. There's two things that we haven't talked about with Google Classroom. One is the gear or the settings in the upper right-hand corner. And so the settings, these are your class settings. And so you can set these up for each class. And so like say, I don't like the name that I named this class. I can call it Demo Class 2. I like it so much better. My class code, I can, once I get all my students in, I can disable the class code if I want. Or say I want to reset the class code because I don't want anybody to join that, that I sent it to before. So you can control your class code here. You can control your stream. And so for those of you that use Google Classroom in the spring, did you let your kids post on the stream, post and comment, or how did you manage that?
I did, just because it was a way that I thought my students were able to communicate with one another, but I did have to mute some individual students.
Yes, good. I'm glad. I'm glad that you talked, that you allowed them to have that communication, but also knowing that you can mute. And when we go to the real classroom, I will find one of you to mute. So you can all behave, but I'll look for somebody to mute just so you can see what that looks like. But so you can control, students can post and comment, students can only comment, or only teachers can post or comment. And so this can be, if you, a middle ground is students can only comment, because then you control the posts, but your students can comment on the posts. And so that's a nice middle ground. Classwork on the stream. So classwork, when we look at the class that I created for you guys, I did not put classwork on the stream because it gets really messy really quickly. So I'm gonna pop out of my settings here and show you. I didn't turn it off for this one. And so now you're going to see every time I posted something, it shows up on my stream. So while that's not necessarily a bad thing, it is, it can really make it so that it gets messy really quickly. So I prefer to tell people to check classwork for your assignments, because on the stream I can see, what's coming up. I can click on it right through there, and so I don't have to necessarily have all the announcements on my all the classwork posts to stream, and that's a personal decision, but just in terms of keeping it tidy. So you can hide your notifications for classwork on the stream, and so now when I go back, you'll see that they're gone. The show deleted items. So if you delete something, and so you can delete inappropriate comments, you can delete, you know, an announcement that is out of date. You know, you have that power, but you can turn on the deleted items. And so say you have a student that made some inappropriate comments, you've deleted them, but you want to have a conversation with the student to say, okay, let's talk about, you know, your comments and how we can do this, you know, correctly. You can show them those deleted comments and say, you know, why do you think I took these down? And so you're the only one who can see deleted. Guardian summaries. Guardian summaries, if your student is on with their K-12 account, you can add a guardian. You can invite them to receive email summaries. Did any of you guys use email summaries this spring? Okay. And so it is super nice because in the summary you get missing work, you get upcoming work, and you get class activity. And so these are the announcements, assignments, and questions recently posted by the teacher. The parents don't really see anything of any detail, like, so they don't see any class conversation, they don't see the assignments, in the sense that they can't go in and look at the actual assignment, but they can get that update. And so it's a really easy way to do that. And so as a teacher, you can invite them. After they accept it, they can choose when to get their invite, or their summaries. And then you can, but you have to turn that on. And so let's pop back to my settings here. So you actually, we'll invite them within, so I'm going to go to your classroom real quick, and we'll go to you guys. And so everybody that is in with a K-12 account, I see the invite guardians. And so I can scroll down and I see, you know, so if I'm going to pick on you, Kristen. I can then type in a name or an email address for Kristen's guardians, and it can be anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be a K-12. It can be a Gmail. It doesn't even have to be a Gmail address. And so if I type that in, then they will get an email that asks them if they would like to opt in for notifications. And then, and so it's a very nice way to do that. And if we look at the about, so the instructions when you're turning it on, they give us an example of what the summary looks like, so you can see what it is. And once a parent opts in, they will get, and here's the first for parents, so you can, and I'll add that as a bonus thing, so you have all these together. But so it describes what they'll see as a parent when they send when you guys send an invitation. So once you turn on the guardian summaries, if you have a student who is already in a class with guardian summaries on and that other teacher has invited them, you don't actually have to do anything. But if the parent has not been invited, then you would need to invite their email. This is Google Meet, and that was a question I had for you guys. What are you planning on using as your online meeting platform for this year? Are you going to use Zoom, or don't you know?
Julie, this is Chris. That's as of last week. I'm not sure. We assumed you were going to use Google Meeting or Google Hangout, but
Okay.
our tech guy said there may be a charge that we weren't aware of initially. He's working on it.
Okay. All right. Then if we want to kind of address that before the end, before Wednesday, that would be great.
I will.
Or
He said
even
he's going to make a decision.
we can do it on if you don't know, we can talk about it at office hours in August too, but I would like to make sure that you guys, we kind of talk about whichever one you're going to use, because you can generate your Meet link and either make it visible to students or not while you're in Google Classroom. And then this grading is one of the things that you guys, I never knew about until I started playing around with Google Classroom this spring a little more. So there's grade calculation, which I don't really do, just because you can do total points, you can do weighted by category, you know, whatever. I don't do the grade calculation. You can show their overall grade to students if you want, but this grade categories, oh my goodness, you guys, magic. So like if I say this is an activity, and I can say my activities are worth 25 points. I can say a quiz is worth 50 points. And I can say a project is worth 50 points. So now, so I'm going to save. So I'm saving my settings here. Now, when I go to my assignments and I make a new assignment, this is demo 3, I think. So I've got my assignment, I've typed in my instructions. Look over here to my right. Now I can say, oh, this is an activity. Boom, 25 points. And so that's super cool. And now when I go over here, oh, look guys, what did I forget to do? I forgot to give it a topic, always. But you'll see here, it's an activity. So you'll notice that in your class, I was really organized and everything has an activity. These are informational. Oh, and this one here is a quiz. And so you can go in and set stuff up and have it automatically give out points depending on what you've set that up for. So I do really like that in your settings tab. So that is a cool resource. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to look at is on the left-hand side. That's your Hamburger menu or your main menu. And so this is going to see all of your classes. You'll notice that it's broken down by teaching and then enrolled. And so because you're teachers, you're going to have both of these sections. Your students are only going to have the enrolled sections. But what's nice here is I have this to review. And so it's going to pull up all of my classes, the content that I have to review. And so different things have been turned in for a number of my classes. I can actually pull up a specific class. And so if I only want to look at, you know, a specific class, I can do that. So that to review is a great way to help you stay organized. And so here we have all of the classes that I'm part of. Here's my classes that I'm a student in. And I have some no date due options in my to do. So as a student, I can see exactly what is coming up. Then I can see all of my archived classes. And so these are classes that I have archived. So if I want to bring them back, I can restore them by clicking on the 3 dots or the skinny snowman, as he's referred to. And so I can restore it, or I could say, I love this class, I want to copy it. But remember I said copying isn't always the best way to do it because you get everything and it can be really messy. And I'll show you actually. So this is the classroom that I copied. And so I have all of these drafts because everything comes over as a draft. So I have all of these drafts in here that I am now like, well, I moved that because, you know, I did it for the other class. And so I can delete it. I can edit it, you know, but so just so you know, copying isn't necessarily all it's cracked up to be. So, and then settings. These settings are your Google Classroom settings. And so this is where if you want to have a fun profile picture at the top, you can do that just by clicking change. And then you can add a profile picture, you can upload it. You can manage your Google account. And then if we keep on scrolling, these are our notifications. And so I have turned on, I want to receive email notifications. I can turn on and off all the notifications that I want. And so I maybe want to know private comments on my work. These are for classes I'm enrolled in. And so I can, these are what as a student, I would want to think about. And these are classes that I teach. And so I can talk about what classes that I teach and what I want. And so like late submissions of student work is something that people have asked for a lot. And so that is in. And so if students submit work late, you'll get notified there. Invitations to co-teach classes, scheduled posts published or failed, I mean, so you can set up your notifications. And then here are your class notifications. And so, for example, if I'm a co-teacher in a class, I may not want notifications for everything that happens in that class. And so I can turn that on and off. So you have that power. So under your settings, you have your notifications. And that is for your Google Classroom, your entire Google Classroom account. So I'm going to look at all of my classes. And so let's say I want to archive a class. I can now go in and I can archive this class. And it'll move to my archive classes. The class files will remain, but if I have any students or anything, they will no longer be able to access that. So that is your kind of your quick and dirty of Google Classroom. So any questions real quick about anything that we've talked about? Sure, we can talk about the calendar. So I'm going to pop back over to Classwork. And so I'm not in my demo class anymore. I'm just in a class. So Google Calendar is one of the best things ever. So I clicked on the calendar in my Classwork, and you guys can click on it too. So I'm going to, I can turn on notifications. I don't want notifications, so I'm going to dismiss it, but you are free to turn on notifications. What's nice about Google Calendar is you can see, so like I made all of our assignments for the class that we're in due on Wednesday. A couple of them I didn't put a time zone on, and so they are, or a specific time, they're just due on Wednesday. But these, I gave them all 11 o'clock, and so they pop up on the calendar at 11 o'clock. What's nice is all of the calendars that I am part of will show up, but I can turn on and off these calendars. And so you'll see my calendar, and so Julie Erickson is me, and I can turn off all of the other classes that I don't want to have on my calendar. So I have that capability. Your students would not necessarily see this many calendars just because I tend to have a bunch of different things. I use Google Calendar exclusively in my life. I mean, I use Outlook for work, but everything else is Google. And so it is really nice to be able to turn on and off different calendars to be able to see them. And so then I can add my own appointment if I want to, that would be on my calendar. Or I can change it and have it show up on any one of my other calendars if I wanted to. So does that answer the calendar question? And then the last thing I want to look at is my Google Class Drive folder. So this is mine. I'm a teacher. And so this is the folder for this class. And so all of the assignments that I did attachments for show up here. And you'll see this one, this creating a custom header for Google Classroom. This was one that I actually made every student, I made a copy for every student. And so as you guys are going in and joining this, as you guys are going in and joining this assignment, you will actually see the header, the files will show up here. So yes, this file automatically gets created in my drive when I create when I create a classroom. And so I'm going to go, I'm in my drive right now. I'm going to pop back to my drive. And as you scroll down, you're going to see each of you should have a classroom folder. And when you go into your classroom folder, you're going to see a folder for every classroom that you are either in as a teacher or you're in as a student. And so if the owner says me, it means that I am most likely the teacher. If the owner says somebody else, it means I'm in as a co-teacher. So I'm going to pop through. So here's my Google Classroom for you guys. And you'll see that I have all of these files that I've used with this class. Let's look at, so like in Burke, they had to create a file, and so you'll see that their files are all in here. And so you can see how that looks. When a student turns in a file, they can no longer edit it, but I can edit it. When I turn it back to them, they can edit it again. And so there's kind of a flip-flop there with the ownership of the file. So yes, so the folder gets automatically created when I create the assignments. You do not need to do anything in this folder. I mean, it's not. Some people, and I've done it too. I'll go in and just look at resources right in the folder, but for the most part, when I create assignments, I do everything from Google Classroom, and so I create my assignment in Google Classroom. If I drop a file into my classroom folder here, it will not show up in Google Classroom. It won't show up at all. When your learners click on a file, so let's go to me as a student. So you guys are in as teachers or students in this class. When I click on my Google Classroom folder for this class, I'm going to see I don't have any files here because I haven't created any files for this class yet. And so I'm going to go, I know that here. No, that's not what I want. Let's see. So this one I ask you guys to create a Google Doc. And so in this one, I'm going to say add or create. I would never send them to the folder, to be honest with you. I mean, I would keep it all within Classroom. So I've created a document here, and then I'm going to turn it in just so that you guys can see. I mean, I'm not doing anything to it. But now when I go back to my folder, you'll see that I have an assignment, a document here that is the name of the assignment, and it's appended my name to it. I could also, if I wanted to, I could have attached a file that I had somewhere else in my drive or uploaded from my computer. It would also show up here once I do that. So in terms of organization, pop back out here to my classwork. In terms of organization, the folder, this is my folder when I'm a student, and as the teacher, this is the folder that my students shares the content with me in. And so if they create, if I want to go in and look at the content, I can do that. And so I would not send my students to the folder for anything other than, if they're looking for assignments or, that kind of thing. I can come over here and edit my file if I want to, but I would teach my students to go through Classroom, through their assignments to do that. Does that explain the folders? Okay. Deb asked a good question about student calendars set up for each class, or do they combine and are a master calendar? Okay, so let me go to the calendar again. So when I go to the calendar, this is my calendar in G Suite. And so not only can I get to the calendar by clicking here, can somebody else tell me where else I could get to the calendar at? The grid, yes, or as I prefer to call it, the waffle. You guys, if we can't call all of the menus of some sort of food item, what are we thinking? So the grid or the waffle in the upper right-hand corner is where we can see all of the different Google apps. And so I can get to the calendar there too. And you're going to notice that my calendar is exactly the same. This is the one I clicked on from Classroom. This is the one that I clicked on from the grid. And so the calendar is just integrated into Google Apps. And so each class that I am in will automatically show up on my calendar. And so any assignments, etc., will show up on my calendar here. So students do not, so if you have a student that is like, in 4 different classes, each one of these classes will show up on their Google Calendar. And then they have the capability to go back and you can hide calendars from the list. And so like this is from 2017, I can hide it. Or I can unsubscribe from it by clicking on the X. And so it just depends on, if I remove it, I'll no longer have access. And so, but you can hide them too. So you can hide or remove those calendars depending on how relevant they are. Okay, Deb, you have a great assignment question, and I'll come back to that. Peter has another calendar question. This is the student's calendar, so they would only see what you've put in Google Classroom, and then what they put in as a student. They will not see your personal calendar. They won't see your meetings or anything. They will just see the Google Classroom and their own. And so as a teacher, they don't see your calendar. This is tied to their account. So Deb asked a really great question about a resource that she uses during class as an assignment. And she said, so Deb, do you want to unmute and chat a little bit about how this form is used?
Yeah, I have essentially part of a lab report that I use frequently. And so typically I have listed it in resources and just told my kids to go to the resources and pull it from there rather than attaching it to every assignment. So do I put it in those resources that we had at the beginning of the year? Do I have to attach it with each assignment, or since it's something that they would edit each time, say that it's in the folder and have them go to the resource folder?
So that's part of your organization and how you, if they, is it the same file that they're editing each time? Or is it a different?
Yes. Well, they need to create a new file for each lab.
Okay.
So it's really a template.
From the user usability, I mean, if you just kind of want it to be seamless, I would probably attach it as a, make a copy, in each assignment that I want them to use it. Just because then from the organization standpoint, when I go in and I look at, so this custom header one is one that I said make a copy for each student. And so now everybody has a copy of this. And so yours, so in yours, which I'm assuming it would be, like Unit 3 lab report, that would be one of the files in that folder. So that would probably be the easiest way, is to just attach it. So when I make my assignment, add that file from my Google Drive.
Okay.
And then make a copy for each student. And then I would have it named, the lab report, or, whatever. And then the nice thing here is now it'll just be part of that assignment. And so they can edit and turn it in.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. All right, I'm gonna delete that. All right, you guys. Any other questions? I'm trying to see if I've missed stuff. Any other questions? All right. So I'm going to talk about a couple of other things. We'll touch on rubrics tomorrow, just because I want to kind of make sure that we have that as an option to really dive into. In the class materials, I added a couple of different things. One is who can join a K12.sd.us Google Classroom. Well, I was under the impression that it could only be a K12.sd.us person. However, I learned while in a training a few weeks ago that anybody can join. So like if you have a personal Gmail account, you can join your K12 classroom. Your K12.sd.us classroom can only access other Google Classrooms that have been whitelisted by the K12 Data Center. So, and you cannot join a personal Gmail Google Classroom with your K12 account. So, but it's just the way the Google Apps is set up. So I would really encourage your students to join with their K12.sd.us email address, mainly just because it really works so much better with the calendar and the Google apps, like the docs and the slides and everything. Everything just works so much better if they're in with that. Plus, you don't see the Guardians option if they are not in with their K12. And so how do you manage that? If you don't see the Guardian, and you guys are awesome. So when I pop through here, the biology squad, well, the name was my first clue, but that is not a K-12 email address. How do I know? There's no invite guardians here. And Jill, you too don't have invite guardians. And so that's one of the things we're probably going to need to look at and see what you've logged in as and how your account is set up. And Katharina, you too don't have a K-12. And so in my classroom, what I would most likely do is I would work with these students individually and say, hey, let's see if you can log in with your K-12, see what's going on type of thing. And then I would come back and I would remove them from the class. And I'm not going to really remove you. I'm just going to show you. So I can check your name, and then at the top of the page I have actions and I can remove. But see, I didn't remove you. Though when you are removed from the class, it means like the assignments that you've turned in, et cetera, also go away. And so I would make sure that I watch this and get your kids in on their K-12s right away rather than all over the place. Once you have your class in, remember, you can go to the gear and delete or turn off the class code. And so I can disable it. And that means that nobody else can join the class through the class code. If I have a new student that joins my class, I can re-enable it. It will be a different code, but I can re-enable it if I want to. Students is also where I can mute people, and I haven't seen anybody do anything inappropriate yet, so I'll pick on Chris. I can click on his name and I can mute him. When I mute him, he can still submit his work. Other students won't see it. But when you submit your work, other students don't see it anyways. But he can no longer reply to classmates' work, and he also can't comment or post. And so so now I can have a conversation with Chris and I can say, hey, Chris, because of what you said on this post, why do you think we've muted you? So we can have a conversation. So I'm not going to mute you either, Chris. I'm just way too nice today. And then the last thing, email. And you think, oh, that's so awesome. Yeah, whatever. Because the K-12 data center uses Outlook as their main email, you do not have access to Gmail. And so while you will get notifications, et cetera, to your Outlook, you cannot email your learners directly. How do you communicate with them, you ask? You have some options. You can go in and on the stream, I can just say something about, don't forget your field trip form. And I can say I've got it from everybody but the biology squad, Chris, and I don't know, LaDonna, I'll pick on you. Okay. So I've picked the 3 students that I need to send that to. I can add the field trip form here if they need another copy, and then I can post it. And so the only 3 students that are going to see this are the 3 students that I have sent that announcement to. And so this is really where we want to start those norms in our classroom, where we are looking at our stream every day, we're looking at our upcoming classwork every day, those types of things, just so you have that going. All right. Okay, so I've talked a lot. I want to give you guys a few minutes to play around in the classwork and also check out different resources. So the last thing, if you need help figuring out what your Google account is, I attached some stuff on how to change your default Google account. So if your personal is coming up as default, you have those resources. So let's look at all your assignments. So will students get an email or something other than the stream that they have something they need to look at? Okay, so if the students have their settings set up so that they will get those notifications and they have email, then yes, they would get an email. If they have a mobile device like a phone, you can have them put the Google Classroom on their phone and turn on the notifications there, and then they get notifications on their mobile device. If they don't have email and they don't have a device, that's where norms come in, and that's where you would say, we're, every day you need to check your stream and you need to look at assignments, and that's just what we do. And so that's kind of how you manage that. Okay, so our assignments, and I gave them all due dates just so you could see what that looks like. Create a Google Classroom. I've given you guys a number of resources, and this is one of my favorite assignments because it's a shared Google Slides. I love it because when I'm in it, I said everybody can edit this. You guys need to grab a slide and insert a screenshot of your Google Classroom, and then answer the questions. When you're done with that, all you need to do is go back to your assignment, and we'll look at this from me as a student so you can see exactly what that looks like. And I gave you those instructions. It's going to say you don't need to attach files to this assignment. I can add private comments to the teacher. And so this is one of my favorite things about Google Classroom, is because I can add private comments to the teacher that my classmates cannot see. And then I can mark as done. And so I do not have to have my students attach a file to every assignment. If I have them go out and do something on another website, they can just come back and say mark as done when they're done. Excuse me. And then you'll also notice that I have class comments at the bottom of the page, and those class comments, those are able to be seen by everybody. And in some of the assignments, I give you the instruction to post something in the class comments or comment in the class comments, so that we can have that conversation. And somebody noted earlier that they use the class comments quite a bit on the assignments, and so this is the class comments on the assignment. So that is that first assignment. Your next assignment is you get to create an assignment in Google Classroom. And so you're going to want to create an assignment that provides information. You'll want to post it and check it out, for the topic and the scheduling and the points, etc. In the class comment, you have to describe your assignment and then review other colleagues' assignment descriptions and ask questions if you have any. You don't need to attach any files, just mark as done, and you can always ask the teacher questions. And then I've added some more resources there. This collaborate and share is another collaborative document. This one is one where I really want us to start thinking, like a number of you guys have asked about how to share your quizzes from your curriculum, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is a option to go in and look at your curriculum and talk about how will you share that to your classroom. And so it's starting to think about that. Instructions and routines is something I get asked a lot. And so you have resources to review. I want you to create a Google Doc with the steps and processes you would like to share. And I've given you guys a number of different resources that you can use. Using Google Drive. Keeping our Google Drive organized is like a full-time job. No, it really isn't, but it does take some effort. As I modeled for you in my K-12 Google Drive, it's kind of chaotic. My other Google apps, Google Drive, tends to be a little more organized. I tend to have a little bit more of a system, but don't judge. I could spend some time going through it. I try to, like when I work with schools, I have a schools folder, and all of the schools that I've ever done any work with have their own folder in my schools folder. so I can keep track of that. One of the things you'll notice is I have folders in my folders, and that really makes life a lot easier. And so I can go through. When I click on a folder, I can right click, I can add it to my starred, and that means it'll show up over under my starred files on the left. I can change the color if I want to, and so if I want to color code my files, I can do that. I can download this file entirely, and it'll download it as a zipped file to my computer. I can also share, and that is one of the things that we talk about a lot in this class is sharing. And so when I share, I'm sharing right now at the folder level, but I can add specific people, but I can also change who can view the link. And so by default, it's going to come up that only the people who it's been shared with. Then it's going to come up to your domain. And so your domain is at k12.sd.us. And then I can change it to anyone with the link. Then you'll see that I can change it to being a viewer or an editor in this situation, because I am doing a folder. So I have different options there. I can then copy the link and I can paste that link anywhere. So you can do that to folders, you can do that to files, all of that. Other file folder things. Oh, sorting and viewing. So I am a list girl, and I like all the information that I see. You can also change your view, and so if you go over to the right hand side, you're going to see the blue eye, and next to that you're going to see grid view. If I click on that, it's going to bring up my files as a grid, and so you can see my individual files are pretty big down here because I don't have very many loose files, and my files in particular, so we'll pop into your folder. So these are the files that I've made for your folder. They're pretty big, and so it can be kind of hard to find something if I have a whole bunch of files in a folder, especially if my screen resolution is fairly large. So this is where I prefer list view, because then I can see what format these files are. This is a Google Sheets, these are Google Slides, this is a Google Drawing, and this is a Google Form. Because I use this enough, I can tell at a glance what those are. I have them sorted by when they were last modified, because for me, that's the easiest way, because those are the files that I'm using most recently. But I can sort by name if I want to. So if I need something to be found alphabetically, I can do that. I can go back and I can sort back by last modified, because that is my favorite. So those are just kind of some of the things to think about as you're starting to use Google Drive a little bit more. If I do have something that is shared with me, that's going to be over on the left, and I have this shared with me. One of the things that I want to show you, okay, so like I really want this book study. So when I open this, one of the things I can do is you'll see that I have the star. I have the little Google Drive icon. It says add shortcut to Drive. And so when I do that, it's going to actually add it to my drive. And so I can organize it in my drive if I want, and I can drop it into a folder. I really encourage you guys to use folders, maybe not quite this many, but use folders, and drop it into the folder that I want it to be in. And so now when I say add shortcut here, now when I go back to your folder, it will actually show up in your folder. And so I can see that it is in a folder, and if I click on the little folder, it tells me where it is, and I can click on the little arrow here and boom, here I am in your folder again, and I have this shortcut to this file here. So adding it to your folder is going to be really useful, especially if you're sharing documents back and forth. It's a lot easier to find things again if you've added them. All right, so that's your Google Drive. And then finally, because PDFs are the bane of our existence, in the in the paper world, we make photocopies and send them out, and kids write on them and hand them back in. In the virtual world, that's a little more challenging. And so what I've given you guys is a number of resources for how to make PDFs editable and how you can use those in your classroom. And then finally, you have bonus material down here, creating the custom header, exploring Google Classroom, managing notifications, and then how could you use the question assignment, which is actually a discussion. All right, so I will give you guys a little bit of time to work. I will answer questions, and is there anything else that you need? All right, so if you are not in the class with your K-12, so if you want, okay, so if you want to rejoin, so you'll need to log out of your Google of the browser that you're in, and you're going to want to log in with your K-12. And so let me send you the join code again. So, all right. And Peter asked, how can I resize the Zoom screen so I can look at the Google Classroom screen? So to resize your Zoom screen, you can hit the escape button if you're in full screen, and then it'll allow you to see the resize buttons in the upper right-hand corner where you can make it smaller. All right, you guys can unmute and ask questions too, or just explore.
Julie, this is Katie.
Hi, Katie.
AKA Biology Squad. So I opened a tab under my K-12 account, but I rejoined. I thought I rejoined, but I still don't see my name in people.
Okay, hold on. So Jessica asked a question, are you creating a test Google Classroom, or can you create one you use this fall? You can create one you use this fall. It doesn't have to be a test classroom at all. I just want you to have the experience of creating a classroom. And so if you can create however you want. All right, Katie, let's see. So can you, let me double check and see if you're in. So I still biology squad. Are you Katie? What's your last name, Katie?
Konold, K-O-N-O-L-D.
You're there.
Okay,
So
thank
you're
you.
in. You're welcome. So do you want me to remove biology squad now?
Yes, please.
Awesome. All right. So I get to remove somebody. Yay! Sorry, it's not personal. All right, you've been removed. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to pop into your first assignment, because what's nice here is I can watch you guys work. Super fun. I'm watching homework roll in as you guys do the assignments. All right, I've got a great question about, is there a way to create topics within topics? Unfortunately, no. You cannot create topics within topics. And so your topics are your big, the really only the option that you have. I mean, so you can do some, like the way you name your assignments within a topic, you could make subtopics that way. But at this point, you don't have a subtopics option. So I can remember being in trainings with teachers that are using Google Classroom, and they'd get so excited. They'd be like, oh, my kids are turning in their work. So I feel that way with you guys. Oh, you guys are turning in your work. I entertain really easily. I'm going to share my screen again because you guys are all working away, but I want to show you what grading looks like, because we are now, you guys have turned in some work, and so you have stuff to see. So if you want to see your Google Classroom while we're doing this, go ahead and hit escape, and then you can move the windows around. But otherwise, I'll share my screen. So here we are in Google Classroom, and remember, so I can do a couple of different things. I can go to my classwork. If there are comments, the class comments, they would show up right next to the activity here. I would be able to see that there were class comments, and there's no class comments yet, which is fine. If I go to people, I still just see my people, but I could click on any one of you guys, and I would be able to see exactly what is going on. And so while I can't see if they've looked at an assignment, I can see if it's turned in or not. And so you'll notice over on the left, I can see turned in, returned, and missing. So, and you're fine. I just picked on you as a person. So grades. So now I'm going to click on my grades. All of my assignments that I posted are here. So if they're not if they're in draft, you guys, they don't show up. But once they're posted, they show up here in my grades. And so what I can do is I can sort by last name or first name. So I have that option. So sort by first name. And then as I look at my grades over here, I can grade right from the grade book, but I want to go into this assignment. So I'm going to click on the assignment, and I can see all of my student work. And at this point, I see that I have 5 people that have turned in, and there's still 28 people that it's assigned to. So now I can sort by status if I want to. And so I can have everything be turned in, and then I have everything down here that's assigned. See, I don't really remember what I did with this assignment. You'll see I have the instructions at the top. And so I can go in and I can see exactly what I assigned for this assignment. And if there were any class comments, I could see them, or I could add a class comment. If I'm seeing like, oh, guys, make sure you do XYZ, I can send out a reminder, or here's another resource you might want to check, that type of thing. If I find an error in this assignment, I can click on the 3 dots, skinny snowman. I can edit this assignment. And so I can go in and edit this assignment even while it's out there for you guys. So I'm going to go back to student work. And 6, exciting. And so what I can do now is I can also filter by just turned in or assigned. So I'm going to grab the assignment. So like here, you see, I really don't have anything to look at because you guys didn't have to turn in an assignment. And that's okay. I'm just telling you that. I can drop in the grade, and then I can add a private comment. And so what I'll most likely have done when I'm grading this assignment is I'll have gone over and reviewed all of your slides, and then I'll say, oh, you had a really great comment, or I may add comments here, and I won't put a class comment in on the grades. It just depends on what I'm doing. So you'll see I graded this assignment. It is not returned, and so I can return it right here and now if I want, or I can just keep moving on, and I can say, I'm looking at Jessica's, oops, 25. So I can go through and I can grade everybody's and review and do their comments this way if I want. So now I'm going to click on return, and you're going to notice that I can either return this submission or I can return multiple submissions. And you'll see that all the ones that I've graded all have a little check mark beside them. So I can go ahead and return those. And so they will all get their documents back to them. So let me go back. So I can close this window and I'll be back in my Google Classroom. And so now I see I have 4 that are graded, I have 5 that are turned in, and 25 that are assigned. And so now I can sort by that. So if you edit the assignment, do you need to have students refresh their pages to receive updates, or does it automatically update? That's a really good question. Let's see. I'll edit it over here. We'll add another check mark in. How does that sound? And then you guys can tell me because you're in it right now. So I'm going to edit it. I'm going to add another row, and I'm going to just say, try Googling for other ideas. All right, so I'm going to save it. Now you guys can check and see if you have to refresh or if it does this. So they will not see the grade or the comments unless you return it. Exactly. And so if you want them to see it, you have to do that. The other thing, and I'm going to show you one more. Remember, I made that document and I turned it in. So I'm going to go in and I want to view this submission. And I'm going to say, you know, you didn't do anything on this document, Julie. What is up with that? So I could make a comment and I could say, you know, please do something. And then I can return it back. Oops. And then they'll be able to make more changes if they want to. All right, so we are officially out of time. So as you guys are spending time in Google Classroom, go through and, you know, answer the question on the stream. I am going to post a quick survey, anonymous survey on the stream so that I don't gather your names or anything like that. But I will post a quick survey so you guys can kind of just do a touch base. And I'll be back tomorrow morning bright and early, and we will go deeper into Google Classroom with more resources. Should you have this done by tomorrow? The more you have done, the more questions you'll have for me. And I mean but I mean all the assignments are mainly just to get you in and playing in Google Classroom and starting to think about those things you need to think about. So if you don't have them done by tomorrow, you're adults. But if you do have them done by tomorrow, excellent. It'll just help as we're rolling through. And I know a lot of you used Google Classroom, which is why I kind of threw in some of this bonus material, because it's that, you know, nice to have, but I mean, it doesn't, you can use Google Classroom without it. So any other questions?